Westworld Season 3, Episode 4. And this is the point where we should be getting into the show, but what's happening?
We're not liking it. It's not something that resembles what Westworld used to be. Even Season 2 was a little bit better than this, but this is way out of control, isn't it?
This time I wrote some notes down as I went through because that's how strongly I felt about this episode.
Just read off the notes, mate, and I'll just sit here and stare into the camera and make people uncomfortable.
So it's, I've written down these certain things. Just not enjoying it. It's all surface drama. Nothing leads you into a deep place in this series. So I think the way I'm feeling there is that in the previous two series we had some kind of things that were drawing you into the story. This doesn't draw you into the story so much as it just has a portrayal of certain characters doing things. It doesn't do anything to you. You're not thinking about what the characters are doing. The characters are just doing, and you are just watching.
It's like a mind-numbing thing, really. If you're into just turning your brain off completely, which this show wasn't about at all, you'll enjoy the show. It's a spectacle. It's not even a spectacle. It's just something that's happening on screen, really. And you just sit there and watch it and don't get engaged.
Yeah. The original series, you got engaged in the story. Your mind was engaged in terms of thinking what's going to happen next. Can I guess what's going to happen? This one, you just are watching and you're just seeing things happen without being engaged. You're not even encouraged to be engaged at this point. So I just wrote down this as well. Hale walks into William's psychological dislocation and then discusses the hostile share takeover of the company like nothing has occurred since the beginning of the episode. So William has a bit of a mental break, and you would expect this to lead somewhere, but it just comes to an abrupt stop. And when Hale comes in and says, "Oh, what about the shareholders meeting?" There seems to be a lack of connectivity, of progression in a logical sense, and we build up and then just get immediately stopped in certain parts of the episode, and the drama, the expectation, the engagement is completely lost immediately.
Yes, it's really weird. It's like they've got something in mind and then they just stop it. And then it goes in a completely different direction. And the shareholders takeover seems to just pop up in the episode every now and again, and it's not very well done.
So my next note is the corporate world is way outside of the writer's expertise. It just seems so amateur, way outside the scope of this traditional story. And the reason I say that is because as the story progresses, we keep going back to this hostile share takeover. There are certain aspects within the show so far which lead you to think that these people haven't really researched what a hostile takeover is like. They don't quite understand, I would imagine, the shareholders meeting, William's ability to actually be a shareholder. The way at the end of the show, and we're just going to skip straight to these points, is that Hale then commits William to a mental institution and then miraculously gains his voting rights as a shareholder. Now usually there would be a passing of those rights through to someone else, either through the will of the person if they were deceased, or they would have an enduring power of attorney. So when they did lose capacity, that person could then exercise those shareholder rights, or they would be able to engage a professional to give them advice on exercising those rights. I'm not sure how Hale actually gets the voting rights, but apparently that's how the agreement was set up somewhere. It doesn't seem to actually have any bearing on reality, but then we progress onwards. Things are so loosely connected and disjointed. Nothing even simulates a progressive linear story. And we used to be fooled happily by this. Or happily fooled by having a story that we can't tell if it's in the present or the past or at this moment. But now things are so disjointed and make so little sense that it's impossible to even follow or even give a care, for lack of a better word, in terms of where we are in the story. It doesn't seem to draw you in like it did in the previous two series. So we've got Caleb and Dolores and Maeve. I've written nothing for that because nothing really inspired me to write any notes on those things. However, we move on. The dialogue is so convoluted that it's hard to follow the story. So it's not intelligently structured. And I'll get to this in a minute as well. So Maeve's motivation is, and we find out what it is in this episode, don't we?
Yep, we finally work out what Maeve's motivation would be to pursue Dolores further. And dun, it's the same thing she was doing in Westworld. And it makes zero sense at this point. Absolutely no sense. So Maeve's motivation is, again, finding her daughter and living with her. Even though her daughter doesn't even care who she is. She's just a program. We want to go find the daughter and have a happy life. And to do that, I'm going to go and kill Dolores. It makes not one bit of sense. Why didn't they come up with a different story?
So yes, she's going to find a life with her daughter again. The key to which lies in Dolores's mind is her ability to spend the rest of her life with her daughter. So I've written here again, a side distraction. Maeve orders a drink of sherry. Now it turns up half a glass in a tall tumbler. Now I don't know which bar that you can go to order a sherry, and she does ask for the biggest glass that they have. However, you would expect a bowl glass, not a tumbler, a tall tumbler glass, half filled indeed with sherry. I noticed these things just in the background, and a lot of the stuff takes you out of the scene, takes you out of the story. Now, oh yes, so we've got another scene with Searock, and he meets with this Asian gentleman who has helped Dolores. Now, in the scene, we're supposed to feel something. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe there's a villain in the story. Maybe there's... I'm not too sure who the villain is, because I certainly don't see Searock as a villain. However, he shoots the man that they're torturing. Now, I don't understand why he would shoot, unless the story writers are so lazy that they believe that this shows that he is a villain or something like that. Any gangster would have his lackeys shoot the man that they're torturing. Yeah, say they wouldn't be implicated in any kind of murder trial, or they could deny it, and the lackey or the gangster man would take the fall for the boss. So the bus doesn't usually do that job. So it's just a little side note I thought was interesting. So we've got William and Hale again. I wrote nothing because nothing happens. Caleb and Dolores. Now this is one of the worst scenes in this episode, in my opinion. And it's where they go into the bank. And why is it a really bad scene? Because of the bank teller. And I'll tell you exactly why. The bank teller uses the words magnitude and indiscreet. So, for starters, even if you're going into an upmarket bank, which bank teller is going to use these words to describe the funds in your account and how they're speaking about them? There's nobody close around to overhear this conversation, so why would it be indiscreet? Dolores and Caleb not knowing one another, it appears that she's turned up as his personal assistant, then how would that be indiscreet? She would obviously know this. The other point that I did want to make was Sir Anthony Hopkins can present the language correctly through tone, timbre and intonation, but most importantly in the correct context. Dialogue has to be delivered in the correct context within the character's ability. And I felt that this scene totally lost that. They were just trying to portray someone in a way that didn't match what the character's purpose was in the scene. And it just took me wildly out of it. And it seems to be the case in this series is that there is a lot of high-level English language used in the wrong context with the wrong characters. Sir Anthony Hopkins, obviously a very learned man. His character was able to portray an intelligent, learned scientist who would have developed an ability to use complex language through his lifetime, and it comes across as genuine. The other characters do not have the ability to portray or convey a message through the language that is convincing enough. So yes, and in the bank we have to use a fingerprint or a blood print. There's no to authentication.
Yeah, everywhere has two-factor authentication, but not in the future world. We just have the singular one, and we rely on it, even though obviously it can be cheated. So well done there, well done. So Maeve then goes sees a blood butcher, and they have a fashion sex slave show, which is all in good taste. We all love full frontal, lingering shots. I don't know where this is old now. This is a bygone era. This is Game of Thrones era stuff, and we're still trying to sell that. I mean, I think people are a little bit more classy. I am certainly tired of F words and lingering naked shots for the purpose of nothing. It doesn't progress the story. It doesn't form a critical part of the plot.
Dolores and Bernard and Stubbs and Caleb all meet each other here, and they have Stubbs and Dolores have a fight. And what do you think of that, Komiyomi?
Well, it's unimpressive, really. Of course we know Dolores is going to win because Dolores wins everything. She never loses. it's one of the weaknesses of the series, is that Dolores and Maeve win every fight oh yeah, it's like when you have a game and some cheat codes, and you put the cheat codes and you play the game, and it's quite funny. You can do anything. You can shoot up everybody because you're not going to get killed, and you can have a great time just de-stressing. However, it's like exactly like that, except you're not playing the game. They are, and you have to watch them, and it becomes excruciatingly boring. Really, really boring. That's what I've really got to say about that.
Yep. So then Maeve goes to the Yakuza. And of course, she kills everybody. Everybody there, and then we meet up with the samurai from Series 2. And then we find out an amazing twist to the story. And that amazing twist is Dolores is everybody. So we don't get Clementine. I thought Clementine was Hale, but apparently that's Dolores. And then Dolores, if we remember in the episode before the episode of the one that we just saw, she cuddled herself basically on the bed and tried to comfort herself using this rationale. And who's the Teddy? Teddy's the guy I was trying to think. So Teddy's not in this. It's just Dolores and Maeve, Bernard and Stubbs. And that's it. So, having the opportunity to cut Maeve's head off, Dolores does not, and does not want to retrieve the pearl out of Maeve's head because somebody's at the door. And that's basically it. Someone was at the door, so they all ran away and didn't take advantage of the situation. William and Hale. So we have literally a delusional episode with William and his daughter, and it leads to nowhere. We have 20 seconds of the scene, probably 20 to 30 seconds, and it just cuts off to another scene. So I don't understand what that was there for. It didn't progress the story. It gets you into a scene and then they take you immediately out of it. I don't understand what the structure is trying to do with the progression of this story. But the last few notes. No attachment to any character at this point. Dolores is super boring. She is super at everything she does, and she's met up with Caleb, who's super dull. There is nothing going on with his character. He does nothing but follow like a lost puppy. Bernard and Stubbs, they are wandering around like Laurel and Hardy. They are a joke. Maeve, although some people enjoy her as an actress and they find her to be the most engaging character in the story so far, I can't stand Maeve because she has no motivation, no drive, and she's super OP. There's no threat to Maeve. But the best part that I like about it is that her motivations are undefined, and don't tell me that the motivation for her is her daughter, because that was dispelled in the last series. Anyway, before I get out of control, Dolores and William sit at the end of the episode, and William asks, and I do believe this even though the audio was so muffled, am I me? And then we get the last line.
Welcome to the end of the game.